Alright, I think we're live.
Yee! Hello! Hello, everyone!
Hello? We don't have a microphone, Lawrence. We're over there.
I know. I was thinking,
There we go.
what happened to Dreams and Honor?
I don't know.
I don't know.
What happens to James and Honor? Welcome everyone. We're back.
Welcome!
We're back after hiatus. Was it 1 week? Or was it 2 weeks?
It's been a week, I think.
Well, either way,
Wednesday.
we're now back for our live chat. And today, Lauren's going to talk to you about everything to do with Crisis Core HD and why she wants it to happen.
What? Why is that?
Because that's what we're talking about today.
But I'm gonna talk to you. Where are you gonna go? Are you gonna go and play Destiny 2?
Yeah,
Admit
I'm just gonna chill out.
This whole day, Daryl's been like, "Can I?"
It
just
hasn't
go
been
and
the whole
play?
day. It's been
Can I
a
go
couple
and
of hours.
play?" 5.
No, that was yesterday.
Yes, we have a new spiffy camera. Because basically what happened was that I finally figured it out.
How can you tell it's a new camera?
Because our quality is different. So apparently the Canon was turning off because it was telling us, hey, I'm overheating, essentially.
Hey Lewis, hopefully that should be fixed now. Lauren's been fiddling with stuff.
Don't blame this on me. But yeah, so basically our camera was overheating. So every time it would shut off, it was saying like, hey, I'm dying here. And we were just like pushing it that much further and just saying, no, you will not die now. We will turn you on and you will keep streaming us. So we finally decided that it was time to get a camera.
It was time.
So we have a lovely little guy propped up on top of our screen, and with any luck, we shouldn't have it break down at all during the stream.
That is the plan.
We don't have to reset. High five.
Welcome, Helen Louise. Welcome to the stream.
Good evening.
Actually, welcome to everyone who's in so far. I mean,
Yes,
it's been a
welcome.
very, we're out of practice. We haven't done it for a week.
I know.
What's going on?
I know.
So
well,
yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I have been streaming, but
You have,
you know.
but I haven't.
No, you haven't. I know. Welcome back.
Thanks. So, today we're going to be talking about Crisis Core HD, Crisis Core High Definition. It's a slightly weird one, I think, because there have been rumors about like Crisis Core HD happening for a while, and I think because they did Type 0 HD, it kind of fueled that fire a little bit more.
Oh, sorry, Billy Jackson.
What? I only see the thumbnail?
I don't know why you can only see the thumbnail.
But yeah, Tabata has kind of said numerous times that he's not really interested in making Crisis Core HD.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of glad about that in a way, because I mean, like Type 0 HD obviously was a port of a PlayStation Portable game over to the PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
And like it showed in many ways. Like I know if you put like side by side screenshots comparing the PSP version to the PS4 version, it's quite different. They did actually do a lot of work on it, but like the mechanics and the graphics aren't anywhere near up to the standard of a PlayStation 4 game or Xbox One game.
Yeah.
And I feel like if they did Crisis Core as well, it would be a similar kind of thing, because
Yeah.
the game was designed for a handheld console. It was designed for portable play, short bursts, and I feel like it wouldn't necessarily work. So to answer your question, who was it? It was the MCR Charlotte.
It's My Chemical Romance.
That means nothing to me.
It means everything to me. Hi.
They haven't said. Well, Tabata has again asked about doing Crisis Core HD, and he was like, "Well, we can't really do it right now because it wouldn't really make sense for us to do it before the Final Fantasy VII Remake comes out," which is kind of what Nomura had said previously, where people are like, "What? You know, like what you've just done for Kingdom Hearts, where you've done the entire collection brought up to speed in preparation for Kingdom Hearts 3. Why don't you do that for the compilation of Final Fantasy VII?" And Nomura was very anti that, mainly because they're basically changing the story of Final Fantasy VII. And if you play the compilation of Final Fantasy VII before playing the Final Fantasy VII Remake, it's not necessarily going to make sense from a continuity perspective. And I think, yeah, so obviously they can't do Crisis Core HD because of that. But Tabata basically said that once the Final Fantasy VII Remake is out, then they could look to remake Crisis Core as well. Right? That's pretty much what he said.
Yeah. That's the thing. They don't know necessarily what they're doing with the 7 remake, which is exactly what Tabata says as well. Is like, we aren't working with that team, so we don't know what they're gonna do. So we can't be like, hey, we're gonna remake Crisis Core and screw all your crap up. They can't really do that because they don't have any clue what it's gonna be like. But yes, no, I am a My Chemical Romance fan. I was actually listening to them yesterday while I was cleaning. I just had a very, very strong urge to listen to My Chemical Romance. But yeah, I can see why that is the way that it is, because of a lot of the reasons why Daryl's just said. I don't know. I think that is a bit Zakini. I think that's kind of. I think they've kind of gone back on that, because I seem to remember them coming out with something about how Gact is still okay with them.
Yeah, no, I think the whole thing about Gact was basically made up by someone. I mean, because they were saying that he might not be in the Final Fantasy VII Remake because of the beef with Gact, but
I don't think there is one.
Yeah, I've never seen anything about it, because they just released some Dirge of Cerberus music or something. I don't know.
There was something that happened. They're still working with him.
He just did some work with them, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he's still working with them. Fine. There's no, because people were saying how the Gact hates them, blah blah blah, and it's like, no, they're okay.
Yeah,
they're okay.
But yeah, at this point, Crisis Core was so long ago, and Square Enix really want to get the Final Fantasy VII Remake right, so they don't really want to have any sort of missteps. And I really do think that if they had a similar thing happen, like what happened with Type 0 HD, that could really hinder the remake's sort of reputation.
I mean, Mecha Soldier, I kind of get your point about re-releasing Final Fantasy VII, but I think the difference is, if they were going to make Crisis Core HD, it would actually require quite a bit of work, whereas releasing Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 4 would require minimal effort on that part.
Yeah.
They've already released on the PlayStation. It's pretty much available on every single platform. The hard part of Final Fantasy VII was kind of making that initial version that they could re-release. But everything else after that is kind of fine, fair game. It's still the original game. It's not like they've done a Final Fantasy VII HD. It's just the original game. Whereas Crisis Core HD, as we saw from Type 0 HD, a lot of work actually went into Type 0 HD. I if you haven't done so, I would definitely recommend you go and check out the before and after screenshots to see how much work they actually put in. But I mean, it's still one of the things, mechanically, it wasn't designed for a home console. It was designed for a portable system.
Mm-hmm. And Rigo, I liked the cut of your jib, as Strongbed would say. But yeah, they would definitely... Well, Tabata said that they probably wouldn't do Crisis Core, if they were going to do Crisis Core, until much after. And then Christopher Ramos, I mean, it will... I don't know. I'm guessing they're going to try and work it around the parts. Work it around how the parts work. They're going to... maybe make certain pacings faster so that it fits within a certain allotment of time. That's the only kind of changes that I could foresee them making, or just cutting out things that maybe just don't translate well into this sort of more realistic version. I mean, there are some scenes where it's just a bit weird. It's a bit too weird for Final Fantasy now.
I think the Resident Evil one is a good point, actually, because I'm trying to look at things from Square's perspective, and they don't want people getting confused about the narratives. Like Final Fantasy VII is available on pretty much every single platform. If you want to play that, you can play that. I think the compilation muddies the waters slightly because it adds a load of new characters and a load of extra stuff. And I think from their perspective, they're basically saying that they don't want people to be confused when they play Final Fantasy VII, and the story's all different. The characters might not even be the same anymore. Like
they basically Star Wars'd it.
Yeah, well, we have no idea really how much they're going to change the story at this point. But considering they want to distance it from the compilation of Final Fantasy VII completely, that to me suggests that there's going to be quite big changes happening with the Final Fantasy VII remake. And I mean, it makes sense. Like, why they... I think it's just the amount of work as to why they don't want to do Crisis Core HD. I genuinely think that's it. And like Nomura's obviously made a decision that he doesn't want people to get confused by playing the other games, but I don't think it really matters that much.
And Mako, I think, was it Sony or was it Square Enix who have said that they're no longer doing any games for the Vita?
It was Sony.
Yeah, like I think the Vita is completely...
The Vita's pretty much gone.
Dead, which is really sad because I love the Vita, but like I don't think there's any company that's going to be releasing anything huge on the Vita anytime soon.
Yeah, but the Peace Walker was PlayStation 3 though. Although, did they release that on PlayStation 4 as well? But I think it's more the time, like, because if they hadn't necessarily planned to do Crisis Core HD, then when's it going to come out now?
Yeah.
It would come out next year or the year after. If it had released like 4 years ago, then I'm sure they wouldn't have cared that much. Or even if it had released like last year, it would have been fine. But clearly it wasn't within their thing. And I think part of the other reason that they haven't done it is because as soon as they did Crisis Core HD, then you get people going like, oh, where's Before Crisis? Where's Dirge of Cerberus? Like, we need to play these games in HD as well now. Well, not Before Crisis, but... And
it just becomes so much work. I think at the moment, they're just completely focused on 100% Final Fantasy VII Remake. And High Resident Fantasy, just a bit sleepy, but okay.
I'm angered.
But yeah.
It's a bad Crucible on Destiny 2.
I know. But yeah, I mean, Charlotte, I do think that's kind of what they're getting at. I think that the remake is going to be sort of Final Fantasy VII inspired, retold. Like, it's going to be like how going to be like how Disney is doing the remakes of all of their movies in like live action. They're doing live action versions of their animated films.
Mako Soldier, it's a very, very, very good point, and I believe it comes down to how Square Enix is structured. Like it's supposed to be that BD like 1 through whatever are internal development, but obviously with the Final Fantasy VII Remake that was being outsourced as well. But I guess it depends on how much of we have no real notion about how big each BD is and how much Square Enix employees move around. There will still need to be a degree of oversight working on Crisis Core HD from within whichever BD would make it. Presumably it would be BD2 if Tabata is saying that, because obviously his team made it originally.
Yeah.
The compilation of Final Fantasy VII is just kind of everywhere. Like, different teams have worked on different things. I don't know who made Dirge of Cerberus actually. I think Before Crisis and Crisis Core were clearly Tabata's team. Dirge of Cerberus was, I think that must have been Katase, so that was BD1. So there's already 2 separate divisions. Nomura isn't in a division at all, but that's currently being BD3 are making the Final Fantasy VII. No, wait.
Yeah.
What am I talking about?
I don't know.
BD1 are making the Final Fantasy VII remake.
But yeah, like, I mean, I just don't...
But yeah, they should outsource it.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, I just don't see why they should have that to focus on. Because, I mean, Nomura's going to want to have a hand in it because it's his baby. So, like, I just don't see them doing it. If anything, maybe some kind of dedication movie or something. I don't know, but I just don't see them doing any kind of.
That's not Yuna in the background. No, that's Squall.
But no, I definitely Well, yeah, compared to before Crisis and Dirge of Cerberus, I definitely think Crisis Core has a bigger one, has a bigger fan
Crisis
base.
Core,
But
I think Crisis Core sold about 3 million copies on the PlayStation Portable, whereas Dirge of Cerberus only sold about 1 million.
yeah, so I definitely agree with that. But it's
Crisis
whether
Core is almost a lot,
it's
also
whether or
better.
not it's whether or not like it's whether or not they match up to the rest of the games that Square Enix are working on at the moment, and at the moment I don't think that they will. I feel like the logical end would be the end of disc 1, like Aerith's sort of death and that sort of thing.
I don't think they're gonna do that.
But
I still think that
yeah,
like Midgar, as Resident Fantasy, I think Midgar is a better shout from a development perspective.
well, yeah, it's less for them to do. It's less
Because they
for
wouldn't
them
have to worry about the world map.
fit in. But then, how many parts is it going to be?
Who knows? I mean, it really depends on how much they're going to cut the story down.
I know, because they're going to have to cut it down.
Because if you think about the original game, it was split into 3 discs, but the third disc was actually very minimal.
Yeah.
So if they are going to do that, then they could
just the final fight, wasn't it?
so they could expand out the first part of the game.
That's true.
And have it actually so it's over 3 parts.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if they ended it at Midgard, that would be a pretty decent point to leave it at.
I mean, really, at this point, they need to do less parts because I genuinely have no idea how they're going to do it because they're going to end up doing multi-platform releases.
I know, it's going to be horrible. It's going to be just such a crapshoot.
Silence.
I mean, they did say that they're going to be like their own games. Like they're going to be like a AAA game.
Yeah, I mean, like Kiki Kitten, like stuff like that. It just seems like a no-brainer to me. I don't know why they wouldn't necessarily want to do that. And it was the same with Type 0. Like, why couldn't they have just put it on the Vita? Like,
I know.
That just seems so logical to me.
I guess they just.
I know Type 0, they didn't want to put on the Vita because they wanted to force people to buy the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One versions so they could force people to play Episode Death Sky.
But actually, what have they released on the Vita?
Square?
Yeah.
Quite a lot, actually, I think. They've been one of the biggest
but like
sports.
the big
World of
Final
Fantasy was on there.
World of Final Fantasy was, yeah. And Final Fantasy 10, 10
Yeah,
2
all the
HD
remasters
remaster.
have been on there.
So yeah, no, it is quite silly.
Is that Mako Soldier? Is that I know that with Kingdom Hearts, like there is the thing about they can't do it digital because of the Disney licensing, right?
Yeah, something like that.
It would be really silly if it was the same. If that was,
which is so stupid. I hate that they just can't get that sorted. Like especially with Bump of Chicken with Type 0, it's just the dumbest thing, and it seems to only happen in Japan. Like,
well, it's not all of them. Like the old games clearly don't have that
problem.
Well,
no, they don't.
But yeah, like the Bump of Chicken, where it's like, oh, you can't record this scene. It's like,
and like you can't listen to it anywhere at all. Like I just want to listen to the song. I love that song.
My thoughts on Final Fantasy coming back to Nintendo are, like, I mean, if it does go back on Nintendo, it's not going to be the type of games that we've got used to.
No, it's going to be like
it'll be spin-offs
tribute, like sort of classic style games, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And yeah, Lauren has been watching that, Helen.
Which one?
Found in Translation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is really interesting, actually. I definitely recommend it if you guys haven't watched it. As Helen was saying, Found in Translation, it's really, really interesting stuff. Like, they cover things like, apparently, Aerith and Zack weren't boyfriends. Like, they weren't
boyfriends.
Yeah, they weren't.
They weren't in a relationship.
They weren't in a relationship. They were just kind of like, she liked him, he liked her type of thing. But they weren't confirmed. They weren't Facebook official, essentially. And I actually was kind of feeling like that type of situation does kind of happen quite a bit in Final Fantasy. Because, like, the same thing happened with Renoa and Cypher in Final Fantasy VIII, because we were just we're doing a video at the moment where we were going through Final Fantasy VIII, and I came across a similar scene where Renoa was trying to describe. It was after they think that Cypher is going to be executed for attacking the president or whatever, and yeah, she's sort of explaining how she feels about him, and she's saying how she likes him, but like they weren't together, and she may have been in love. I just thought that was an interesting connection between the two. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Tabata has said on the Switch thing, it was like during it was at Gamescom, right, where they were like, "Oh, we might be doing something with a console that rhymes with Twitch," and then like a week later, he's saying, "Oh, by the way, we may not be doing anything with the Switch because we need to investigate it."
Or I need to buy it or something.
What?
Yeah, now in Galbadia, that's it.
Yeah, so that going back to the whole Final Fantasy VII remake redo story thing, like as we're going on to the Katase thing, like that to me just kind of shows how broad they're going to go with the Final Fantasy VII story, because Katase was saying how he likes the School is Dead theory, and he's going to think about integrating it if they do ever make a Final Fantasy VIII remake.
And Zack, just to say, this is it's debunked because it was lost in translation. So the translation of Final Fantasy VII straight from Japanese, that is what's debunked. So it was just a mistranslation on the English version. They just kind of said that he was her boyfriend, but that doesn't actually happen in the Japanese version.
Key to anime, we talked about it about 15 minutes ago, maybe?
Yeah. Why don't you check in when we actually start?
All right.
I'm kidding.
That didn't sound like a joke. That was like dead serious, Lauren.
That's because I'm a good actress. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, no, we talked about Crisis Core HD quite a lot, the feasibility of it. Yeah, so basically, if you're joining now, to recap, Tabata has said over many years that he doesn't necessarily want to do a Crisis Core HD. He doesn't think there's much demand for it. He doesn't think that there's any point in doing it. But our internet's going, no. But he has recently was asked about doing it again, and he said that he can't do it right now because it would conflict with the Final Fantasy VII remake, and they don't want to introduce the old story back into people's minds before they're playing the Final Fantasy VII remake, which is going to be a different story. But he is open to investigating doing a Crisis Core remake or HD remake after the Final Fantasy VII remake has been put out, so that they can readjust the story to make it fit with the new story. Right?
I wasn't listening.
What were you doing?
I was reading the comments.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I hope everybody else was listening to Daryl's. I wasn't. I'm sorry. But yeah, I prefer the Renoa is Ultimecia theory a lot more than Squall is dead, because I don't want Squall to be dead.
Well, he's not.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, I can't remember I think we put it in the video about the Final Fantasy VII compilation being much bigger than you think. Part 2 of that, there was some quotes from Tabata about like older ones when I think he was working on Type 0, about why he basically wasn't interested. No, it was when he was working, like they were interviewing in the relation to Type 0 HD, and they were like, well, since you're doing this, why aren't you going to do Crisis Core? And then he basically just said like there's no real need, because everyone who could play it got to play it.
Thank you, Rachel. I know.
Obviously now there's people that they don't have a PlayStation Portable, but I think his point was like enough people at the time played it, whereas something like Type 0 in the West, it was impossible to play it without them doing the HD remake.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where he was coming from it. Like it was like there was a lot more demand for Type 0, than there was Crisis Core HD, if that makes sense. That's kind of how he was weighing up in his mind, just because we never got Type 0.
No.
So, but we got Crisis Core.
Yeah, and also, I mean, they wasted all of those poor voice actors' time by recording it. But yeah, I mean, with Crisis Core, like, it will all depend on how they incorporate Zack in Final Fantasy VII Remake. Because obviously, I mean, I don't know if they'll play it as if we already know of the existence of Zack. I don't know if they will just act as if we don't know Zack for new players coming in. Like, it's all kind of up in the air what they'll choose to do with Zack, because it depends on which group of people they're going to focus on.
In my opinion, they are definitely going to make him a bigger part of the story. Like, they can't. This is Square we're talking about. Like,
but then it's a shame though, because like the biggest sort of one of the biggest twists in the story is about how Cloud isn't Zack. So then that kind of would ruin the experience.
That's not necessarily the twist. The twist is finding out that Cloud thinks he is Zack.
That's what I mean.
But if you introduced Zack earlier on, like, that wouldn't change anything. Or if you had a bigger role, it wouldn't necessarily change anything.
I guess the thing is that, like, that whole sequence, why would they play that whole sequence where Cloud is saving everybody and going up against Sephiroth and Nibelheim? Like, they wouldn't. What's the point in having Cloud do it?
You still
Zack.
wouldn't know at that point. But what I'm saying is, you could start talking more about the relationship between Zack and Aerith. Like, they're gonna have to introduce other characters somehow.
Yeah, I just don't know. I just don't know how they're gonna do it. I don't even know if Nomura knows.
That's why it's taking so long.
I know.
We want to retell the story, but we don't know how to make it better because it was already good. But we feel like we need to change it.
I'm just ready to see Cloud in HD in a dress. He was so pretty. Is that your stomach? Are you okay?
My stomach. My stomach is apparently very angry.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about the open world aspect, what they'll do. I mean, they might do it. Well, they could do it like they do with Final Fantasy 15, but maybe not.
I mean, Final Fantasy 15 style would probably work the easiest, but the whole thing with the world map is that the scale.
Yeah.
Like, the scales are going to be so weird. And they got around it in Final Fantasy 7 and Final Fantasy 8 and 9 because they didn't care about scale.
No.
Like, they just made the world map and they made a city that was ridiculously large, tiny.
Yeah.
Like, Midgar is almost the same size as... It's a bit bigger than Calm.
Yeah.
But, like, it's not massive. It's not, like, overwhelmingly huge.
No.
Whereas if they do, like, the Final Fantasy 15 style, then they're going to have this massive mega city. I don't know. I genuinely don't know how they're going to do it. But this is the thing. Like, this is all the problems that they have to solve. Like, how are they actually going to do it? And we don't know anything yet.
And
despite the fact they announced over 2 years ago, we know almost nothing.
Key to anime, my one thing against that is the fact that then you wouldn't have a place to have the theme song of Final Fantasy VII. And I must admit, the theme song of Final Fantasy VII playing while I'm running around is glorious.
Yeah, Ni no Kuni style could work.
Yeah, Ni no Kuni would work.
But yeah, I mean, like, it just... There's so little we know about the Final Fantasy VII Remake at this point. Like,
I know.
It's just... It's crazy.
But Rachel, I think have no way.
I think that's why if they did Disc 1 as purely Midgar, then Midgar would be so much larger. They'd have so much more you could do there, and I think that would make things much more interesting.
Yeah.
But we just don't know. I mean, like, you think in the original game, the opening bombing mission was like a 5-10 minute job tops. Yeah. In the Final Fantasy VII Remake, there's no way it's going to be that quick. No way whatsoever. Like, it's going to be so much longer. It has to be because of the action adventure style. Like, it's going to make battles take longer. Mm-hmm. There's going to be more to do. You got to walk around a lot more. The level design is going to be more complicated. Like, they're not going to be able to just do like, because if you think like the Final Fantasy VII original, it was like you walk from the train to the entrance, you walk from the entrance to the lift, you go down the lift, you walk like, it was so small. It was like you spend about like 10 seconds in each area with like a little bit of story.
Yeah.
Anime, Final Fantasy Unlimited. Ooh. That has a lot to do with Final Fantasy and anime.
Could we do a Cloud dress up? Actually, I want to design Cloud's clothes.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like Mecha Soldier, I think I can see them spending a lot more time making characters like Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse, like, because you think about the scene when they crush the sector plate and everyone kind of perishes. Like in the original game, those moments were kind of glossed over a bit, but I can see them now like actually fleshing these characters out a lot more, giving them a lot more personality than they had, because really they had limited screen time in the original game. Whereas if they give them more time now, then when they actually make their sacrifices, it's going to mean a lot more. And I think they can do a lot more with it from a storytelling perspective. But it's just kind of, where are the additional scenes going to go? I can imagine they're going to have a bigger role in the opening bombing mission. They're going to have a bigger role when you get back into the slums at the kind of the seventh heaven. And then they're probably going to be more integrated with you as you're going around that area.
Like, I can see what people are saying about, like, whether or not it will be linear or open world. I mean, I don't mind a linear game, quote-unquote linear game. Final Fantasy X is my favorite. But, I mean, at the end of the day, if it's not open worlds, then how do you get back to places like the Chocobo Ranch? How do you get back to places
it
like...
would have to be.
What's the one where it has the little
Fort
strategy, Fort Condor? Like, you know, the issue with Final Fantasy VII is that you're always kind of expected to maybe go back to those places. Like, they could do something with the airship, but then it's also like, what do you do about Emerald Weapon and Diamond Weapon and all those kind of things? Like, where the way that you got to them was by going up to them in the airship and exploring. So it's a bit difficult. Like, how are they going to allow you to go do that? How are we going to allow you to go underwater to go see Lucrezia or go see the sunken submarine? Like, there's just so much.
Welcome, Jake. Welcome to the stream.
Hi, Jake.
On that note, has anyone actually watched Final Fantasy Unlimited like properly?
I've not.
I'm actually very snug today. It's quite.
I know.
It's like deceptively cold at the moment.
Well, this is their Nourish Red Wings hoodie.
It is.
Yeah, they're really nice.
The hardcore fan is just the same as any other fan. Yes, it is very true. Once you've played a Final Fantasy game and you are invested in the community, you are a hardcore fan.
And Don, it's just people get very passionate. People get very passionate about certain things. Hell, I just had a freaking argument with somebody like a little bit ago about Life is Strange's ending, and I'm just like, at the end of the day, this is like fiction.
It's a fiction.
It's a game.
But it's not fiction though, because whatever you pick in the Life is Strange ending tells a lot about you as a person.
It does. But it's just like, come on, guys. Like, it's okay. You can just not like a game. It's cool. Or I can not like a game. It's cool. You just have to have a good reason for not liking it.
What's your reason?
Well, I only really dislike one. I only really dislike 12. And that's because I just.
What's your reason, Lawrence?
I find it so boring. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I really wanted to give it like a good go, but no.
Final Fantasy VII's open world is going to be crazy. Like the part where you get the like the tiny Bronco, and you
Yeah.
can like go. You can only go around the shallow
edges.
water.
Yeah.
Like, how are they going to make that
And
interesting?
even with like the chocobos as well, like there's certain chocobos that you can ride where you can only ride them on the mountains or you can ride them over rivers and stuff. I don't know how they're gonna do it.
It's gonna be crazy. Someone agrees with you, Lauren. Well done.
Yay!
Life
Oh,
goals.
that might have been like
Sorry
really
for your
loud.
ears, everyone.
Yeah, sorry for your ears. Yeah, I have supporters. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah. But that's the hard thing. Like, it's what Daryl and I have been going on and on and on about. Like, Final Fantasy is so hard for everybody to like the same game because every one of them is so different.
Yeah, I mean, like they I can imagine there being like lots of and we were reading about it, weren't we? Like,
Yeah.
when I think it was Ito, no, it was someone else. When they were doing Final Fantasy 9, they were talking about the fact that when they made the transition from 6 to 7, because 1 through 6 are very similar. Like, ignore the changes in story and stuff, and like the gameplay systems are slightly different, but the concepts like they had in play are quite similar. Final Fantasy 7, they went crazy, changed the graphical style, changed a lot of things, but still they just kind of modernize it. It's kind of like Metroid and Metroid
Also,
Prime.
Guys, don't get into a 13 debate, please. Please. We're all friends.
But like, yeah, after I'd say after like 7 and 8 were kind of similar, but 9 was different but similar. Like, it's just like with 12 they just went, whoa guys, let's go crazy.
Yeah.
13 they then tried to bring it back a bit, but then went other ways, and like the games just got, because it's like there's so long between them as well.
Yeah.
It's so difficult to have any kind of continuity.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I don't want to make this about Destiny, but like Destiny 2 is very similar to Destiny 1. They took everything that kind of didn't work, got rid of it, improved aspects that did work. Like, you could essentially be playing the same game just with like, it's just complete like a reskin or whatever. Like, but there's enough different about it for me to think like I didn't get ripped off. Why don't Square just do the same? Like, they've got Final Fantasy 15 out. The next game in the series has to be a similar game. If they suddenly go, actually, Final Fantasy 16 is no longer going to be open world. It's no longer going to be like action RPG. It's going to go back to turn-based. It's going to be more linear. It's going to do all this. Then we're going to go the same way again. Everyone's going to be like, what the hell is this? All the people that came in with Final Fantasy 15 are going to get confused because it's a completely different game again. Some of the older people will be like, yeah, great, okay, this is super. But it's like, it's just that kind of continuity thing. Unless the next game they make is just amazing and everyone just ignores the fact it's different again.
Yeah. Like, that's the thing. Like, they should just build on what they have right now instead of constantly trying to push the envelope. Because it's just, it's really admirable to keep wanting to go further and further and further. But you're just costing yourself more time, more effort, and more disappointment because you're not able to deliver what your vision was. And ultimately, Final Fantasy comes down to telling a really good story. And if you're so focused on how decent the gameplay is versus the actual story you're telling, then it's not a really good Final Fantasy game. What do you do? If I can't scuba, what has this all been about?
It's true. You need to scuba.
You need scuba.
But yeah, like I wasn't opposed to Final Fantasy 15's direction. Like, yeah, sure, it was different.
Yeah.
I would have preferred if they'd stuck with Final Fantasy 13's battle system because I enjoyed that. I felt that 13 was fine. It was the other aspects that weren't where I wanted them to be. But they decided to try and change things again, and change things again, and then change things again.
Also, I will say that I did find Final Fantasy 12 to be equally easy, and I don't really care about doing trial mode. The fact that you can play Yizmat. You can play it and then change a channel and leave it going if your gambits are good enough. That for me, that's not my idea of a good time. I need to be engaged.
Yeah, it's okay. On since we're talking about the fact that Final Fantasy 12 was supposedly easy, what do you guys think is the most difficult Final Fantasy to date?
For me, the one I got stuck on the most, if I'm at all honest, is 13. That's the one that I felt like I had moments where I was just like, I can't beat this person. Like Sid Reigns, for whatever reason, was just so hard for me to get past.
Alexander.
Which one do you think?
I think 13 as well, probably.
Yeah? You're not just agreeing with me?
No, I think it was the most challenging system. Because most of the ones prior to 13, you could just grind and you're fine.
Stick quest. That's because you had to try not to hurt everything around you.
I thought that Crisis Core's battle system was okay.
I think like the first time you play through like your boss fight in Final Fantasy 13 and then you realize that you have a time limit and then you're just like, crap, I can't just spend ages on this boss. I actually have to beat them within a time limit because otherwise I'm gonna die. Like, that just sucked. Yeah, I can see that with 10, but like for me, I definitely felt like it was only like a couple bosses that I really got stuck on. But with 13, it was like, you know, you had the what's the name of their summons?
What?
Oh, you already said about Alexander,
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
you? Yeah, Eidolons. I'm thinking about their brands. Yeah, they're Eidolons.
Now they've got more people in there. What's the vote? Do we want them to make Crisis Core HD? Crisis Core HD, anyone? Thumbs up if you want Crisis Core HD. I'd like Crisis. I still think
I like Crisis Core.
I think they should still, irrespective of the reasons why they don't want to make it. I think it's just they should just put it out there. It's kind of easy money.
Yeah.
Surely.
Yeah. I think there's enough people who like Zack. Final Fantasy V had some pretty hard bosses too.
See, right. So, I didn't think Final Fantasy X was hard. The difference between Final Fantasy X and it was, but like Final Fantasy X was difficult if you didn't want to invest in grinding. Like that's it. If you went through the game with the bare minimum, it was quite difficult. But you could always grind. There were always grinding opportunities. Whereas I think they did have it so you couldn't progress in the sphere grid to certain points. But I think in Final Fantasy 13, they capped the Crystarium so you couldn't actually grind. Grinding did nothing. The fact that it was linear as well, like you couldn't actually get any stronger. So therefore, the battles became much more strategic. Whereas 10 didn't really have that.
They had like a couple moments, like Evray, the Bevel Guardian, like that was a hard one because like the random battle rates on the airship were just so rare that it was just impossible to level up enough so that you could actually beat him if you were under leveled. But yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think for me, Final Fantasy 13 was just so much more strategic, and you actually had to care about status effects. Like, what?
Yeah. I think it's like a lot of people that want Crisis Core HD.
Yeah, I think that was a lot. At first, I was just like, "Wait, what? Did somebody say something?" And I was just like, "Oh wait, we're just catching up."
What?
We're just catching up with them saying, "Yes, we want."
How many of you would like Dirge's Cerberus HD? Now that's the thing. Dirge's Cerberus HD.
I did kind of like the story of Dirge of Cerberus. Like, I like the idea behind the storyline, and I really like Vincent. But I don't know if I can make it through that game.
You not want Dirge of Cerberus HD? I'd be okay with Dirge of Cerberus HD if they
Nope.
remade the gameplay systems. Just redo the whole gameplay.
Yeah.
Would be fine.
Have Platinum Games do it.
Oh, that would be right. If Platinum Games were available to kind of do a remaster, a remake of Dirge of Cerberus, all in. I would be all over that. That would be one of the best games ever made.
Yeah. That'd be so much fun.
Platinum Games are the best.
Oh, they are. They're just so good. We have a Platinum Games sticker I found.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From many years ago.
It's our pride and joy. But yeah, if Platinum Games could take on Dirge of Cerberus, that would be sweet.
But yeah, I agree. I thought that Dirge of Cerberus was actually, from a story perspective, it was actually quite decent. Like,
it offers a lot.
The characters they introduced, the Sphettes, were good. I mean, like, there were parts that were a bit cheesy, but I thought that the way they dealt with Vincent's character, and the fact that they decided to focus on Yuffie and Reeve and Kate Sith as well, instead of focusing on like the classic Cloud, Barrett, Tifa, like they chose the it was Sid as well. So like Vincent, Yuffie, Kate Sith, and Sid, like they're the characters they focus on in the game, as well as the fresh new characters like Shalua and the Sphettes. Like, I think that was a good move for them, and I think the fact that they gave each of the antagonists, they gave them like something unique, so they each have their own color.
I really like the designs of
them. They have their own personalities.
It's very Metal Gear Solid. It's very Metal Gear. Like, if you think about the boss, the joy, that type of thing.
I would love Platinum Games to make everything.
Yeah.
Any game.
Just make it. Just make it. I know. You do. You are so in love with Vanquish.
I have definitely seen Last Order subbed.
Yeah, I think I've seen it around.
I think it was just a sub. I don't think it ever got an English dub. I think there's a Spanish dub.
I couldn't make it through it, to be honest.
Well, Last Order is technically non-canon, so...
Yeah, technically. Because it was so bad. From what
it's
Nomura
not
said.
Because it was so bad.
That's what Nomura said.
It's because they... Even though Nomura was directing it, they got the story wrong.
Yeah.
Well, no. This is the thing, right? So, getting back to the Crisis Core HD and then the Final Fantasy VII Remake, Last Order, they actually made because they wanted to change the story. Okay? But what happened was that when they changed the story, everyone in Japan kicked off about how much they didn't like the story being changed. So then, the plan for Crisis Core was that they were supposed to be using cutscenes. They were supposed to be integrating Last Order into Crisis Core. So that was going to be like how they were going to tell the story by using Last Order. But then, because of all the backlash from the Japanese audience about how they didn't like the new direction they'd taken, they just decided to say, "Oh, yeah, no, it was non-canon."
Yeah, done. Over.
And then they had to redo everything they wanted to for Crisis Core to then make it match up with the original game.
Wish they could do that with the Star Wars prequels. It's like, George Lucas is gone now. We could just say that those aren't canon anymore.
I don't want to get into this. I was going to say, how did Tabata ruin the story? But no. Don't, Daryl. Don't do it.
Don't poke the bear.
Don't poke the bear.
But yeah, somebody asked you earlier about what makes a good Final Fantasy game, and I know that we've sort of covered this before, but like, I definitely think story for me is a big component of what makes a good Final Fantasy. It has to be
story is just
easy to follow and emotional.
Story is
gripping.
The easiest thing. Like that's the thing they need to get right. That's the. Why was I saying easiest? It's like the most important part of the game. Like, if it doesn't,
it's not easy.
No, because if I want to play a game for gameplay, then I'll play a Vanquish or a Destiny or something like that. I'm not too bothered about the story in those games. Yeah, sure, it'd be nice if they had a good story, but I would play a role-playing game because I want to get invested in the characters and the story. Like, I just that's how it goes. Like, that's I want a good story. I want good characters, and the recent games haven't really delivered on that front.
No.
And that's why it's kind of been divisive. Like, I think if Final Fantasy 13, 13-2, Lightning Returns, like 14, 12, and 15 had really solid stories that were unanimously agreed on, then I think people would overlook the other things that they don't like about the games.
But yeah, I mean, like, you just look at Final Fantasy X alone, like, how deep that story was and how many levels you can sort of read the characters. I mean, it's just as much about just Titus' story as it is about Yuna's story. It's also a commentary on racism, privilege, religion. Like, there's so many levels that you can expand upon with Final Fantasy X. And with some of the other games as well, but like, it's just missing in Final Fantasy 15. There's no message. There's just nothing. It's just so bland.
But it's like, if you're playing an RPG and the story and the characters don't work, you're stuck with them for like 40 hours.
I know.
So, like, gameplay and graphics aren't going to save an RPG.
There's only so many times I could hear, "That's not normal."
Yeah, G-Bike was great.
Yeah.
Well, G-Bike was like the precursor to working the Cyber Connect working on the remake, and then they moved them off the remake.
I realize what you're saying, Chris, but Final Fantasy gameplay at the core has always just been pretty simplistic. Like, it is a game, it should be playable, but Final Fantasy was known for the story. That's just what it was.
I mean, the gameplay systems are there.
Yeah.
But they're like turn-based. It's turn-based strategy, essentially.
It's not rocket science. Whereas, yeah, like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just as much as like playing something like Heavy Rain. Like, you know, there are movie games, there are games that are there to tell a story, not necessarily games to reinvent the wheel gameplay wise.
And they just have to make sure that what they implement works.
Yeah.
Like, their mechanics need to work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, could you imagine if like Heavy Rain had terrible implementation?
I don't think it was necessarily the best implementation.
No, but like if you just missed everything and then everybody died, it'd be so terrible. So that's fine. That's fine, Chris. But like,
when did you come into the franchise, Chris? Because I think that's also a part of it. Because like, no one was playing Final Fantasy VII because of its amazing gameplay systems.
And to be honest, back in the day, people were playing Final Fantasy games for both its graphics and story and music, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, gameplay has become more of a thing, but then Final Fantasy 13 for me had a really good gameplay system. Like, it was compelling, it was interesting, it kept things fresh. But they've decided they didn't decide to build on that anymore. They decided to, well, Tabata chose not to build on that. Well, Nomura chose not to build on that.
I mean, at the end of the day, everything is important. But with Final Fantasy, it's just, yeah. I mean, take Life is Strange, for example. I mean, I know I'm going back to it, but like, Life is Strange had a very simple sort of
Well, point and click adventure games.
Yeah, it was a point and click adventure game. Like it just wasn't. It wasn't anything that was just crazy. I mean, granted, it did push the boundaries in terms of like how your choices affected the future of the game, which was really cool. But it was like mostly about the story that was being told, which I don't understand why we can't just think about think about Final Fantasy games in that light anymore. But I guess that is because of Final Fantasy 15.
You've got plenty to catch up with, Sabrina.
Yes.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 7. They were always waiting to cash that chip in, but then they've actually got to deliver it.
Yeah.
Like they actually have to put the Final Fantasy 7 remake out, and then they have to hope it does well, because if the Final Fantasy 7 remake doesn't do well,
somebody's getting fired.
Oh, that's gonna be awkward.
Somebody's getting fired.
Could you imagine if the Final Fantasy 7 remake releases and it gets review scores of like 6s and 7s? That's just gonna be really awkward. Probably more awkward than that classic male science, the one we just had there. That's But yeah, I think we're fading, Lawrence.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think we're fading.
I think so too. I'm getting very tired.
Yeah.
I need to tuck
You are tired.
I am tired. I need a nap.
So, yeah, I think. Do you want to put a link in the thingy to our Facebook group, and then, yeah. If Final Fantasy 7 Remake gets a 7, people are going to be very angry. People are going to be very angry. So yeah, if you want to join our Facebook group, I think there's closing on 300 people in there now, then feel free. We post up news and funny memes and stuff in there, and you get to join with all of us. Feel free to do that. Lauren is also going to post up a link to the second channel we're working on, which is for streaming stuff. So people were asking us to do streams for a while for playing games. Lauren decided to do it. So
you get to listen
she
to
streams
me
on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then we're uploading the streams onto the second channel. So Lauren's going to share a link with that now.
Yep.
My channel.
I'm doing it all wrong. I'm doing it all wrong.
Doing all wrong. And then, yeah, if you'd like to support us on Patreon, then feel free to head over to our Patreon. Patreon.com/FFUnion. And I think we've got another video coming up. So we just did one last week, which was for Satoru Sadama, which was talking about the 5 massive cuts or changes that people don't know about. We're going to be having another one coming up, which is going to be talking about, I think it's to do with like the emotional responses people have had depending on like how when games are released and how the fan base has changed over time. So that's going to be an interesting one. Tomorrow we're going to put up a video talking about the Kitase and his fan theories. So we're basically doing a bit of a history lesson in terms of the theories, where they came from, and then obviously Kitase, I said Tabata, didn't I? Kitase's response to the theories. And yeah, I think we're pretty much gonna skedaddle there because we're going crazy. Thank you everyone for joining. Please feel free to hit that like button before you go, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.